Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show because I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice-a-week long-form podcast, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. It's one of the many, many reasons why I proudly fly that American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you live yours as well. All right, let's go. It is Thursday. Tracy St. Clair on YouTube. Good morning to you. Bill McIntyre, let's go. Good morning, everyone. He's over on YouTube. Corey Buchan, good morning, all. He says over on LinkedIn today. I love it. Yeah, Thursday. It's going out here. This week has been everything that I had expected it to be at the end of the day. Stephen Tittle says, good morning, gang. Sick at home in bed, but still working. Need my real news. Appreciate you, brother. And hope you feel better soon, man. I do. Like, I got something here a couple weeks back, and I don't know, man. It was miserable. SP Freight, aka Jamie, good morning. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, this post-holiday week is so it's so odd, right? Because I mean, I'm just getting this in all of my outreaches, this morning. I'm still getting a bunch of out of offices from my prospects and everything. And it's just like, I personally think, and especially out there, if you're getting, if you're seeing lower capacity out there in the market, I truly think it's a holiday hangover, right? And I'm sure there's going to be some stats and everything coming out there that are going to try and paint a picture. But the reality is this happens around every single Christmas for the most part, right? Every single Christmas and New Year's, the week after. And I realistically think it could hold out until the week of the 15th of January, of where capacity and rates are going to be kind of up, right? Like, we were working on a couple of lanes yesterday, and we weren't getting anything, right? Like, we made probably 40, 50 calls to cover a load, and it was like 50% higher than what we normally pay on it. So those holiday rates are definitely hanging around. And again, execution's everything, right? No matter what, you got to get out there and you got to execute. Flo, good morning. Watching over on LinkedIn, and she is congested too, she says. Micah Campo, good morning. Thanks for tuning in, Micah. Yeah, so I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and this guy is on the carrier side. He owns a fleet, and they've had a lot of growth in their company. And I was talking to him about some stuff, and it just baffles me the lengths people go to try and, like, I would even go as far as like ruining people's businesses, right? When it comes down to like freight guard reports in particular, this conversation was about. And I've been a broker now for 13 years. I have never filled out a freight guard report one time on a carrier, not one time. And I've had a lot of shit happen, you guys, right? Like, I've been in this industry for a long time. I've moved a lot of freight. I've just never felt the need to go out and do that, right? And especially, like, the more of them that I read in my career, the more I realized how much brokers love blaming carriers for what they're not doing. Now, this isn't every single time, all right? I know exactly how this industry works. But if you're putting a freight guard report out there against a carrier because the driver arrived, showed that on GPS, got unloaded, but didn't answer your call, like, what are we doing here? And it's just like, you see this more right now in a lot of the industry, because it's a broker's market, right? Brokers think that they can do everything and get away with everything right now, but eventually things are going to change. But what are you doing to think that you should go out there and put out a report that could possibly be detrimental to somebody's business, right? All because you didn't do your job. And I saw that all the time. I've seen freight guard reports from brokers against carriers who they sent them the rate confirmation and never followed up with them one time, or they claim to have sent the rate confirmation, never followed up with them one time, and the carrier never did the load because they never got a rate confirmation, and then the broker tries to blame the carrier for it, and so on and so forth, right? Like what are you doing? That's what I want to know. What are you actually trying to accomplish with some of these reports, right? Because like does this mean you're going to get more business from it? And most of them are all bullshit. Like no joke, most of the reports that are out there are all bullshit. And it's like there's technology that's out there that is geared to put people out of business, it seems, because there's a big difference between verifying that a company is a legit company or not. But some of this stuff that goes on out there, it's crazy, right? And like my buddy who I was talking to, again, they own a fleet, they're good, they've never had a freight guard report in like 10 years. And now like that's the one that go on. And it's just like, I think like if people stop being as petty as they are with some of this stuff, it just baffles me. It really does, because you're only hurting yourself. And that's what a lot of people don't get in the moments, right? Like I know a lot of brokers love to tough talk and sit behind a computer and do all of that stuff. And I say that with confidence because that's what I used to do early on in my career. But you kind of grow and you learn in that. And I think that there's going to be a day of reckoning, unfortunately, for a lot of brokers out there when this market changes eventually. When it changes, because all these requirements that some of these brokers have right now for carriers to be able to work with them are all going to go away. They're all going to go away because they're not going to be able to find capacity because carriers are going to tell them to shove it. That's what's going to happen, right? And it's just this back and forth that constantly goes. And, but this is what you see out there on social media. The real players in the industry, they don't deal with any of this crap, right? Like they're out there, they're making money, they're making moves. And that's what I would highly recommend all of you do going into the rest of 2024 is focus on your business. How can you retain customers, retain loyalty with those customers and those carriers as well? And instead of going this petty back and forth, that just litters this industry, which is an unfortunate part of it. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I just think that the sooner you can stop going into the back and forth phase of everything with the freight cards and all this other bullshit, the faster you're going to go to making money and growing in your business. But yeah, it is what it is when it boils down to it. Some people are going to choose to make changes and some are not. And that is the reality of it. Chloe Reedy, good morning to you. Thanks for tuning in. Eric Ransom, watching over on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. SP Freight says it's horrible right now with freight guards. I've seen 2 carriers that can't book a load this week. Robert Cowton, happy New Year's. And he says, May 2024 be the year of action. We talked a lot in 2023. Put that knowledge into action. Amen to that. Xena, morning, everyone. And yeah, I believe I agree with that, Jamie, is just like, what's the end goal with it, right? Like what's truly the end goal? And it's, I don't think nobody wins in that situation. At the end of the day, nobody wins. The broker thinks that they're badass in the moment, but it just costs them in the long run for the most part. So let me see here. Deborah Smith, happy New Year to you. And retain your capacity during the tough times. Amen to that. Sonny Sharma, good morning, all. He says, watching over on LinkedIn. All right, you guys, we're going to break down some headlines here. As always, the links to all the articles that I break down, I put up on the YouTube channel, as well as the Coffee with the Freight Coach audio only replay, which is on iTunes and Spotify almost immediately after the show. And as always, if you guys get value in what you hear, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network. This is how we reach more people and help more people, is because of each and every one of you. And the fact that if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. First article that we got today is from Transport Topics. State groups sue Biden administration over emissions rule. 21 states join a lawsuit that charges Biden, Buttigieg, and Bat with overstepping their authority. In a 283-page civil complaint filed December 21st in the Western District of Kentucky, the state maintains that only Congress is authorized to advance GHG rules and charge that Biden, Pete Buttigieg, and Federal Highway Administrative Leader Shailene Bhatt have violated the law with a series of actions that target GHG reduction. President Biden is unconstitutionally ramming his radical climate agenda through administrative agencies that lack congressional authority to implement such actions. We will not stand by this while the administration attempts to circumvent the legal process, said now former Kentucky Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, who is leading this challenge. In particular, the states are suing the U.S. Department of Transportation and individuals for their official capabilities or capacities over a series of actions, and those include Biden for signing Executive Order 13.990, protecting public health and environment and restoring science to tackle climate crisis. And then also tackling climate crisis at home and abroad, making lowering carbon emissions a national priority. And then BAT for carrying out prescribed FHWA duties. Buttigieg for establishing and implementing the National Highway Performance Program, which per the FHWA website provides support for condition and performance of national highways, safe highway system for the construction of new facilities on the NHS and to ensure that investments of federal aid funds in highway construction are directed to support progress toward achievement of performance targets established in a state's asset management plan. The states accuse the DOT of tying their 2022 federal proposed GHG rules to the state's DOT and metropolitan planning organizations to reduce emissions to Biden's administration's target of net zero emissions economy-wide by 2050. And then each state maintained its sovereign right in the complaint, and it lists off the 20-some states that were involved in that. And obviously, that's their big thing is the federal government shouldn't be able to tell them what they can and can't do inside of their state, kind of how Constitution and all that stuff set up. But anyways, the filing pointed to past actions by federal transportation officials before Biden took office and maintains that there is no federal law regarding the National Highway Performance Program that specifically directed or required either of the organizations to adopt a GHG measure. Instead, the complaint said federal law encourages state DOTs and metropolitan planning organizations to consider a variety of ways to incorporate environmental considerations under their existing authority. When is it going to end? That's all. It's just nonstop with this. And then it goes on to say, hold on here. That it goes on to say that phasing out both sales of new and internal combustion engine passenger cars by 2035 and coal and oil power plants by 2040. And then it goes on to say most Americans still drive internal combustion engine passenger cars, and American roads and infrastructure, including power grids, simply are not ready for the wholesale switch to electric vehicles. Coal still provides 20% of the electricity in the United States and provides over half of the electricity to 8 states. In Kentucky, 70% of all electricity is generated by coal. Missouri and Wyoming, 70% from coal. And in West Virginia, 90% of the state's electricity. And then let's see, many of the ideas for how states can decrease their GHG emissions, congestion pricing, road pricing. Let me see here. I'm just skipping around because there's just a bunch of BS that kind of comes along with this. And then states will also be hit with economic implications and financial burdens. They said the federal government estimated that final emissions rule will cost up to $12.7 million for the first 10 years of implementation. It just seems like, why? What's the real end game? And before anybody says cleaner air and everything, I get all of that. I just don't understand how or why. And this is where I feel like a lot of the states are really coming from here is it's not the federal government's job to tell any of us what we can and can't drive or how we power our homes or heat our homes and everything else, because this is the biggest thing that's just somehow not talked about, which if you're going to go all electric, you need the power grid to be able to sustain that. Yet there isn't a power grid that is able to sustain that currently inside of our country. And I just think that there's just no, again, follow the money. That's what it'll always boil down to. Follow the money. There's all of these green initiatives and everything that are going on right now, but it's like you at the end of the day, it's just it's government overreach. It really is. That's plain and simple what it boils down to. Idaho Attorney General Raul Labrador noted that the federal government demanding a reduction in vehicle miles traveled is ridiculous. States simply cannot be forced to implement the policy whims of a federal government, and the Constitution is clear about that. Montana Attorney General Austin Knutson said this is a one-size-fits-all approach, might work in D.C. bureaucrats who cooked it up, but it isn't going to work in Montana. He said that the emissions regulations will disappropriately harm states with more rural areas. Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody issued a statement noting that states are required to set arbitrary targets to reduce CO2 emissions, track progress towards this, and this rule forced states to spend an inordinate amount of time, resources, and money with no clear guidance on what success looks like. Why are they trying to limit our travel too? On top of that, where in this is this beneficial for our economy, right? And then another thing too, just one thing to think about before we wrap up this article and go on to everything else. Why are the biggest proponents for global warming and electrification and all of this stuff and talking about rising ocean levels, why do they always buy oceanfront property? That's what I want to know. Why are they the ones always buying oceanfront property and screaming about how the sea levels are going to rise? I just don't get it, right? To me, this is not the job of the Department of Transportation or even the federal government to implement anything that says that I can't drive a diesel truck if I don't want to. That's not what this is here for. All right. And this is where so much of our tax dollars are going when we have so many people out there in our country at any given time that need food and healthcare and everything else under the sun. But we're going to go and waste billions of dollars on all this bullshit that is going to get all overturned when the administration changes to a Republican administration. That's all that this is, right? Like this pandering, this back and forth, all of this bullshit that's going out there is only costing us money. That's all it's doing. There's zero progress that is made from this. It is costing us money. Anyways, that article is from TT News about state groups suing the Biden administration over admissions rules. Anyways, now, next article we're going to break down is also from TT News, and it is about driver recruitment success hinges on freight turnaround. 2023 has seen a slowdown after the pandemic-driven demand. Experts are having a difficult time predicting the demand for professional truck drivers this year, saying it will ultimately hinge on anticipated freight market turnaround. Freight movement saw a significant slowdown in 2023, coming off of more than 2 years of pandemic-driven demand. This has led to driver recruitment and retention being less of a focus. I think everybody is taking a wait-and-see approach, said Scott Dismuke. He's the VP of Operations at employee retention and analytics firm people.data.analytics. If you go back to the first of the year, I think folks were predicting that things may turn around in the third quarter of this year, and it obviously didn't. Dismuke also noted the seasonal holiday bump this year wasn't as significant as many were hoping for. He saw the trend continue into the year with the predicted turnaround being pushed back to the first or second quarter of 2024. I think ultimately nobody really knows. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's all an educated guess, no matter what. Anyways, you're also going into an election year, which I think adds to uncertainty that we normally face in an election year, particularly when you look at how divided the country is politically. So I think that there is uncertainty with the election. Obviously, there's uncertainty overseas. Couldn't agree more with that there, Mr. Dismuke, at all. That is exactly how I feel about what could possibly happen here in the freight market. Let me see here. A driver survey out there found 56.1% of the drivers were optimistic about the impending end of the freight recession. The survey also revealed that 33.3% of drivers currently searching for another job, of those, 62.8% indicated they want more predictable pay. I think the most important thing for fleets to think about going into the new year would be, do I understand the data around all of my recruiting, said Priscilla Peters, who is a VP at Conversion. Knowing and understanding what your value proposition is for drivers who come to drive for you, having a good strategic marketing plan in place, those are going to be fundamental. I think this isn't said in the article at all, but I think here's just something that maybe you want to start with. There's a lot of surveys from drivers out there, lots of them about what's important to them. And it never matches up with what's important to the business owner or the fleets. Maybe start there, right? Like if you want to retain drivers, because I don't think there's a driver shortage at all. I think that there's a massive retention problem. I've been saying that for years, and that is where people need to focus on. All right, because here's the thing: there's a lot of people in this industry who, and this isn't required, but like I also feel like if you're going to lead an organization who maybe owns a fleet of trucks, not in every situation, but maybe spend some time in the cab. Maybe drive around with your drivers. And, I'm not saying go out and get a CDL and, you need to have driven trucks for your entire career before you can run a trucking company. That's not the case, but like spend some actual time with your drivers. Find out what they like and what they don't like. Don't take surveys or anything. Like actually be a leader and get in the cab and go out there and see. Don't, like again, like I think about it like this, like that Undercover Boss show that used to be pretty cool. Maybe go in as the CEO of one of these companies and check in at some of these facilities that these drivers have to pick up and deliver into and see how you're treated, right? I want you to go in there, not as a clean cut, freshly shaven. And I'm not saying that drivers aren't like this, but like, most people are in suits and ties if they're inside of an office. Go in there in jeans, look like you've been driving for a couple of days, and go in there and check in and go through that experience. All right. How are your drivers treated there? And then at the truck stops and everything, the access to food, the access to clean amenities at some of these truck stops and everything that you probably pay a lot of money to fill your trucks up at if you're a large fleet. See how that experience is. And then talk about how we can improve recruiting people into this industry. Because again, fundamentally, if you look at it, there are not even on the same page between what's important to a driver and what's important to a fleet executive that is out there. I think that that's going to be a big turning point on how we're going to retain drivers, because recruiting people in to this industry isn't necessarily a problem, in my opinion. Retaining them for the long term is, because of what people are expected to deal with out there on the driver front. And enough people can stop turning a blind eye to this and saying that it's not that bad out there. All right. Because clearly it is. And otherwise, people wouldn't be leaving this industry in droves like they were. And no, I'm not sitting here and saying that I don't understand that there's like, I know that there's two sides to the story, but in a lot of these things, because, it goes on to say in this article in particular, that they're like, oh, the brands are telling their stories. And then we've had conversations about that for years. I think that it's just a mix of, yes, we have to stay foundationally with what we know to be successful in recruiting, but we also have to know and understand the technology of today. Dismuke said that, let me see here. Freight recessions, I think this one's down about, okay, I'm trying to go around here. Freight. See, the fall 2023 driver survey found that among drivers looking for a new job, 13.9% were afraid to make a move in the current economy. 15.6% were of respondents said that they needed more experience, but 60.1% reported they were being happy where they are. If you take a look at those numbers, you're looking at 30 to 35% of these drivers within 6 months, if things change, will be looking for a job. I think, again, like, what are you doing to separate yourself as a place where people would want to work, right? Like, I don't necessarily look at because if you want to look at things, driver pay is a thing that constantly comes up. I know that there's a lot of fleets out there that have switched over entirely to a salary model, right? Where they're salarying their drivers at $70,000 a year per se, hypothetical example. But they found a lot of success with that. They found that actually their equipment is maintained better because people aren't feeling the need to keep pushing it to get a load done so they can get their money and everything, because they know that they're going to get paid. So I think that this is going to really open things up in the long term, that I think is going to change how this industry actually works, right? And I think that when it comes to driver recruitment in particular, the workforce doesn't necessarily get older, right? Like, it's getting younger. And if you want to recruit people into this industry, what is important to a 20-year-old, right? Or how do we capture those individuals who are looking for a second career. And again, I think technology and the lifestyle that comes along with it are a big selling point. Now, the life on the road isn't for everybody. All right. It's not. But there is a large group of people out there that love the desolate isolation of driving a truck. All right. They don't want to work in an office. They want to explore the country. They want to be that nomad. But again, if we want to keep people in this industry, we have to look at what's fundamentally wrong and we have to change it, right? And the thing that you got to do every single time is look at yourself in the mirror first. What can you, as the business, do? I would challenge every executive out there of any large fleet or any fleet that is having problems recruiting and retaining drivers and ride along. All right. Ride along for a week, 2 weeks, get out there, experience this, see what your drivers actually go through out on the road when it comes to weather, traffic, how they're getting treated at facilities, what the access to parking looks like. Actually experience that. And I think that that would speak so much higher volumes than any of these other case studies and questionnaires and any of the other typical corporate bullshit that a lot of people want to do. And again, this is all speculative from my point. All right. I don't know what every company out there does, but from my perspective, frontline leadership, that's how you're going to change your driver recruitment and retention issues if you're out there experiencing them, is actually take what they're going through and make fixes, right? Like some of these facilities that are out there that say, drivers can't leave their trucks or they can't use the restroom and everything else. And put it this way, if I ever own a fleet and I find out that my drivers are being denied access to a restroom, I will pull all of my business from that facility in a second because I will never value profit over my people. And some of the stuff that you see out there, we all know what's going on, but people value the bottom line and they value people as replaceable, right? But again, this is what I love about capitalism and a free market. This gives a company an opportunity to go in there and decimate the competition by doing and making the changes that everybody talks about, but nobody actually implements out there. But that article, you guys, good article. I love transport topics, ttnews.com, driver recruitment success hinges on a freight turnaround. I don't think it hinges on a freight turnaround at all. I think that what you're doing right now inside of your organization, that's what it hinges on more than anything. But that's going to be it for today, you guys. Sydney Thiessen, good morning, all. She says, watching over on LinkedIn. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is Q&A day. Okay. So if you have any questions, sales and operations related for the transportation industry, drop them in the chat on the show tomorrow or DM them over to me. I will answer them live on the show. And Robert Cowton says, I would say 90% of broker agents have never been inside of a semi. When I worked at Coca-Cola, every sales and administration staff had to do a minimum 1 day ride along. I would agree with that. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Not everybody grew up in the family of trucking like I did, right? Like I've ridden with my dad numerous times growing up. And I've been a part of this industry my whole life, but I would agree with that. I think if you're a broker and you've never did a ride along, get involved somehow with a local trucking company and ride along and see what drivers actually go through out there. It definitely changes your perspective on things. But that'll be it, you guys. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard today, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network. This is how we reach more people, you guys. And most importantly, this is how we help more people, is through each and every one of you. And the fact that if you see value, your network will see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.